Hello, everybody. So I am so excited. I just got off of a Zoom. I've been doing these Zoom. It was just such a great experience to do a meditation where we imagined a goal. And Malika, who I interviewed just an hour ago, joined me there on Zoom too. And we focused on a goal. Hi, Noreen.
Hello. Hi.
Hi, I was just saying that I just got off Zoom and led a meditation on a goal, a big leap that we want to take, and imagining ourselves already having done it. And it was such a powerful and wonderful experience. So,
I could have been
um,
on that one. That would have helped.
well, I'm so glad you're here. And I don't know if you were able to. I know with all the different time zones, and there's so many moving parts today, and I'm just loving connecting with people from all over the world. This is just so fun. But I don't know if you saw my conversation with Malika at all. But
No.
we talked about Malika had lots of tips. I'm going through all of the touchstones of creativity in my book. And we started with Una at 6:30 my time in the morning, and we talked about what helps Una get inspired in Sweden. And then I just got off the with Malika, and Malika shared some of her tips for getting for her process, because touchstone number 2 is create a process. But one of the things that came up was how often we fall in and out of flow, right? And when we're not in flow, sometimes we struggle and we come up against our inner critic and our, all of those things, all of those emotions, beautiful emotions that are part of the creative process and the flow process. That flow isn't just when we're flowing and things are going great. It's also, um, you know, we get into flow by moving through uh, you know,
Exactly. You know what I tell people that know both of us? I'm like, well, Lori and I, we kind of do the opposite thing. She's like when you're in your flow and everything's going, and I'm where, like that moment when you're like, what the heck is going on? Why can't I
get into flow.
progress at all, make
Yeah.
any progress? So yeah, I think we're complementary to one another in that way. And I actually have to say that when you gave me that topic, blocks, I actually hadn't really thought of that word. I love how you do these one word, inspiration things to make you think about it. um, and I actually hadn't thought about that word myself, blocks, but that's the perfect word for it, because you know that break everything down into feelings that have love and feelings that need love, and feelings that need love would be
Yeah.
blocks. So all those things that block you from loving, block you from, yeah, being creative, flowing,
Right.
all of that. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I created my first workbook for the touchstones, and so I don't know if you saw that, but yay, this is the one about
Uh,
inspired. But the one I've
Congratulations with
already
that.
created the one about the blocks, and the subtitle is The Secret to Getting Unstuck. And
Right.
that's the part of my book that focuses on this, because it is, in doing these 28-day flow challenges where we choose these joyful activities that we do every day to help us get into flow. Um, Time and time again, what I've been so amazed by is that often one of our greatest challenges to getting into a flow state is what's inside, not outside. So we talk a lot about setting boundaries and focusing, and all of the outer things that we can do to support our flow process, but really it's the inner stuff, right? It's that inner critic. It's the emotional blocks that may be linked to trauma or past
Absolutely.
whatever,
Yeah.
and
It's
anything.
all trauma. It's all linked.
Yeah, it's all, whether it's our trauma or somebody else's trauma or beliefs that we've heard or whatever it is, it gets integrated and gets into our being, right? And so we all have
Totally.
different stories that keep us from getting into flow, and they all come up at different times depending on who we are and what's going on. But I think it's so important to talk about, right? Because it is, although I do talk about flow and, the positive side of flow and how it can change our life the more we get into flow and make it a habit, we can't do that without talking about and doing the work that you're doing, which is so, so
That's
important.
right. Louisa Hay has a quote where she says, if you want a clean house, you have to look at the dirt.
That's
So
perfect.
that, that's just what we're talking about. You need to, it's wonderful to be in flow, but to get into it, you need to feel safe. You need to feel love. You need to feel good to put all that other stuff out of your
Yeah.
head.
Yeah. Yeah. So, for those who don't know either of us, if you want to just give a little background, I've already shared a little bit about my 28-day flow challenges and how they started during the pandemic. And that's how we met each other when you participated in one. And what I love about your feedback is, I love how you shared that your flow activities sometimes weren't joyful per se, but they were things that you did anyway, on a regular basis, and you found that you got into flow. But also, if you can just share a little bit about the work that you do, because I think you work with children, and I am a huge believer that kids are our greatest teachers. And there's a lot of evidence and a lot of research that shows that the younger we are, that we all, first of all, it's really important, before I even say this, we all experience flow. And there's a lot of research that shows that we experience flow up, the elderly experience flow, and we're all totally, it's part of our being, and what we're meant to do. And because it's linked to learning, little ones fall into flow much more, and there is research that shows that kids experience flow even more than the rest of us. So,
Right.
since you work with kids, I just would love it if you would just share a little bit about the work that you do and sort of what you've noticed as you've been participating in the flow challenges.
Well, one of the things I think the most important thing is that they feel emotionally safe. And then it's once they get that, once they, I mean, it's of course different. I'm a teacher, first of all. That's what I'm an animal assisted teacher, art teacher, love teacher. That's my major emphasis on teaching social and emotional development. And I do that through art, because it's a way to express yourself, and also working with our horse, our family horse, from the ground. So it's a lot of talking about feelings and that kind of work. But
And she has beautiful reels. I just want to throw it in there. Beautiful, beautiful reels of the animals. So,
and my dog Moon, he's
yeah.
sitting under the desk right now.
Uh-huh.
Um, but with the children, I mean, I sometimes work at the Copenhagen International School as a substitute, and there I'll walk into a classroom of children who don't know me. And to expect them to just get into flow doing whatever, is maybe asking a bit much. But once I get them to trust me, and the way I do that is letting them know that I'm not strict. That's actually how I start. And I mean, really, if that's a teacher scenario. But if you think about it in your own family, like if there's a family member where, you feel they're strict or something, you're not as keen to, I'll give you an example that, when I make videos or whatever, my family cringes a bit. And, I kind of like it when nobody's home, right? Because I feel safe there without judgment, right? I love my family, but, they can be critical. And so that's what I'm saying. So I want children to know, like, I'm not going to criticize them. There's no, actually, I have one rule in my art room, and it says, in art, there are no mistakes. And that's what I tell them, that they just have to remember that they can always work with their mistakes. And I can just see their body language. I'm sorry, I've got my I thought I could go on my computer, but here we go. Anyway, I can see they start out like this, listening, and as soon as I start telling them there are no mistakes, I'm not a strict teacher, I see their bodies relaxing. And I've told you many stories how, once I say, okay, create whatever you want, because I don't believe in cookie cutter art either, they get, it's quite amazing. And I don't think adults could do that. If I just said, here's all the material, go make anything, create anything. This comes like that for children who feel emotionally safe. They get right into it. And I know when I was doing one of your flow challenges, it was making me so aware of it that I was, really running with it and telling them, yeah, encouraging them to be as creative as they wanted. And one of the children asked, "Can we play music?" And I'm like, "Yeah, play the music, right?" And this was flow, and that was the bit I made that for you to show
Oh,
you
that was so
what you're
nice.
doing and how
Yeah.
contagious it is. I love that. I love how contagious flow is, because once one person gets into it, it makes everyone else feel free to do their thing. And I love that your activities are do whatever you want. And as you said, I've realized that one of the activities I do, and this is going to sound crazy, is mucking our horse's box. I actually get into flow doing that. And I made a video of that too. But just funny things that can just quiet your mind. You're in the process, and and yeah, and it's wonderful. So how are we on time?
We're good. We have a few extra minutes, and
Okay.
I would love for you. I know you're going to join me, I think, right? Are you available to come on Zoom after this?
Yes,
Yeah. So
I am.
we're
Yes.
we're going to do a meditation specifically on this very issue of, our relationship with our inner critic and softening our blocks. And I was thinking as you were talking about the advice that you give the kids and how you work with kids and they don't respond to strictness. We can learn from that for ourselves, right? Like being strict with ourselves and our own creative process and just listening to our own voice as we talk about whatever it is that we're creating or our flow activity or how we're doing what we're doing and or what the product is, but if we can just not be strict with ourselves as well, that really helps with the flow. But I want to give you an opportunity to share your three-step process here because I just think it's so helpful. And I think it can be used in any circumstance where particularly when we're doing our flow activity. And just to clarify for those who don't know, the 28-day flow challenge, I say, you choose a 5-minute activity that is anything that you want. So it could be mucking out the stall, or it could be, I've had people that polish their faucets or people that jump rope. And, the idea is anything that you intuitively feel will help you access flow or what you need in the moment. So, but when we do that, we often come up against these blocks and they're often emotional in nature, right? Their source is some sort of emotion comes up that we have judgment about, and then that stops our flow because our prefrontal cortex during flow often gets quieted, and that's the part of ourselves that is that inner critic and is also the part of our brains that's really good at executive function. So putting this before that, and it's a good, very helpful judge, but but sometimes that can get on overload, go haywire and turn against ourselves. So when that quiets, that's when we fall into flow, when that part of ourselves is kind of
That's
going
right.
to sleep.
Yeah.
And but your tool is so beautiful because it can help with that process. So can you just explain
Yeah.
your three-step process and
Absolutely.
help?
Yeah, it's that little voice. Some people call it the ego. Some, people have different names for that little negative voice in their head, the one who stops them usually from doing things. I like to call it the feelings that need love, because that's all they are. I don't want to associate them with being negative and positive, because they are what they are. And so to look at these feelings without judgment, So the idea is that every time you come to a situation where you might be blaming, shaming, guilting, you know, whatever the feelings that need love, when you come to them, if you could just put your hand on your heart, take a deep breath in, and do my 3 steps, which is look, listen, love. It's easy to remember. So the first step is look at what you feel. So if you take the situation, whatever happened, right? And there's your first thought will be, he said, she said, that he said, she said. Well, it's not about that. How do I feel when he says, she says? That part's okay. You can play into it. But just to look at when that happens, how do I feel? What is that feeling inside of me? That's look at what I feel. So can you just give me a feeling? Like you can just make one
Yeah.
up, a
Yeah,
feeling
or
that
even
needs
right
love.
before this day, right? I felt nervous because I've not done
Okay,
many
great. Yes,
Instagram lives before. So yeah, a little nervous. Yeah.
okay. And now the second step is listen. Where do you feel that in your body?
Kind of my shoulders feel a little tense and just a little jittery all over when I'm nervous.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So if you catch yourself in it, to
Mhm.
just look at it. It's a nervous feeling. Listen to where you feel it. You've been very specific up here. If you do this on paper, which I recommend people to do, there's a PDF on my website. That people can download for free. So that's NoreenO'Sullivan.com, and you can get that. But if you do it on paper, I ask a few more questions. But for this demo, we're gonna just do the 3 steps. So the last step is love. So sit with that feeling of feeling nervous. You've listened, and then sit with it and ask yourself, what would the opposite feeling be? If you didn't feel nervous, what would you feel?
Calm.
Calm. Right. So then you just sit with that and you just imagine that love is being poured over you and you feel calm. And just, I know it sounds like so simple that it wouldn't work, but it does. It because you catch yourself in the moment. You are stopping the hamster wheel from going with nervous because you've looked at it, you've listened to it, you're sitting with it as it's almost like you could put it out on the table. So now you've sort of separated it from who you are. It's not, you are not nervous. That's not your truth. And that's also in the PDFs. We'll walk you more through that. But as I said, this is a demo, so I'm going through it. This is the speed, look, listen, love.
Well, that's what's so powerful about it, right? That it can be quick and it is a great tool from that perspective. So, and I love what you said about, um, putting it outside of yourself. There are a lot of exercises in my book, and maybe we'll do one of these on Zoom as far as meditation, but that have to do with that. A lot of people who do these flow challenges are extremely creative, and so it's easy to imagine your emotions almost like a little child, as you were sharing what your technique is, and when you send love to an emotion, it's almost like, you can kind of see it outside of yourself, almost like a little child that needs love, which is what I think is
Exactly.
so
Yeah.
beautiful about your work, because you work with children and animals, and it's so much easier to imagine sending love to a little child that's nervous and needs love, or to an animal that, we just ooze love when we see your videos of the horses, and it's just easier to do that than to sometimes give ourselves that love when we're feeling an emotion that's inconvenient and
Exactly.
showing up at a
Yeah.
moment that we don't want it. And so that's what I just love, your 3-step process, because it's something you can do while you're driving or preparing for an
Yeah,
Instagram
you can do it
live.
all the time. You can do it while you're in traffic and you're maybe, I don't know, thinking insane bad things about the drivers around you, and catch yourself. That's my advice to people, like where to start, how to start. Start noticing when you are judging, when you are blaming, shaming, guilting, just catching yourself. Don't guilt yourself over it, but just, I think a lot of times people get into bad habits of being a little on a negative default. And when you start catching yourself, you're like, oh, I don't really need to say that that guy's an idiot because he didn't put on his indicator. It's like these little things. It's like, and you just start catching yourself, and you will just, you know, things change. It sounds so dead easy that it can't work, but try it.
Yeah.
And this is the whole thing. I always used to listen to, well, I still do, Eckhart Tolle, but when I first heard it, I was like, I don't understand anything he's talking about. I think I like it, but I don't really understand, what does it mean, the power of now? And and this is what it is. It's just accepting what comes without judgment. And these big feelings, these feelings that need love, they lose their power when we start to look, listen, and love them.
Mm,
It's actually that easy.
beautiful. That's a great place to end. So thank you so much, Noreen. Noreen and I are both going to be on Zoom. And so if you don't have the link to the Zoom, it's the same link all day. At the top of every hour, I'm doing a meditation. And it's a 5-minute meditation and just a little check-in. And I'll just be there for, I know it's different time zones everywhere. For me, it's almost 9 a.m. So
But wait,
from
let
9 a.m.
me just make sure. So anybody can join that?
Anybody is welcome to join. They just need to get the link, which they get through clicking the link in my bio. As soon as they
Okay.
sign up for the Leap celebration, it'll take you to my website, which is the subscription form, and you just click the Leap celebration, and then you're going to get an email right away with the Zoom link. And you can come every hour at the top of every hour, and I'll be there meditating all day
That's
for 12
amazing.
hours. And so Noreen and I are going to head over there
Yeah.
now. So if you
Yeah.
love what you're hearing and you want to talk to Noreen more, she'll be there. And remember to
Yeah,
follow
great.
her and click the link to get her download. And I also have a download through my website that has the 7 touchstones. So I know I'm mentioning them a lot today, but I have a little journal with the 7 questions that go with the 7 touchstones. So it'll make a lot more sense if you download that, or you can check out my book. So anyway, thank you so much, Noreen, for your
Thank
time.
you for having me. See you in a few minutes.
Okay, see you on Zoom.
Okay. Bye. Bye.
Bye.